I just wanted to come on and talk a little bit about Native American religious freedom because it's different. The liberties that uh, indigenous people enjoy relative to the protections given to colonizers. And for me, it's deeply personal, right? Because uh, when I was born in 1976, it was still a crime for indigenous people to practice their spirituality, and doing Native American ceremony could have and did land indigenous people in jail. And for me, the the people who enjoy religious freedom, they enjoy their right to spirituality without having to worry about persecution. Uh, they have they have a privilege that I didn't get to enjoy, right? My family my family is both indigenous on my dad's side and Jewish on my mom's side. So you figure it out pretty quick that our spirituality and religious practices have caused uh, our family to be subject to persecution, right? And in the case of my mom's family, they directly fled Holocaust in order to be able to survive. I guess they fled genocide, since Holocaust is a specific time in which my relatives were killed. You know, um, Christ, Christofascism has been used as a form of oppression for a long time, a long time, and if you haven't, if you don't have that as a lived experience, it can be difficult to recognize how people might feel on any given Sunday. But Sunday is a day for all of this reverence and sacredness and ceremony and ritual. And the church influence is such that institutions are closed on Sunday, and different public uh, services are unavailable on Sunday, whether it's mass transit or access to health services, or trying to be able to, you know, register to vote. And people in the US were indigenous and not Christian for thousands of years. And whatever day of the week it wasn't a big deal. You just cared for each other, right? Every day. And now we have these institutions who are responsible for maintaining moral fiber in our community. And they receive tremendous benefits to do that work, as far as tax benefits, uh, legal cover for when they do misdeeds, because the church is known for some really horrific misdeeds that they've uh, perpetrated. And uh, the state largely gives them cover, and they don't have to be uh, too worried about carrying out these crimes, actual crimes. So, the Vatican will shuffle around these predators who harm people, especially children, and meanwhile the state gives them tax exemption, and they benefit directly from stolen land. Like these churches, a lot of them are built right on top of Native American sacred sites. When the colonizers got here, they built their developments on our land, and they went to the places where we practiced our spirituality to build their churches and steeples to try and make it so that we could be more easily destroyed in a spiritual sense, colonized inside of our spirit. You know, on Sunday, then the colonizers are in church. And a lot of these churches, if your church has a plaque on it, and that plaque says built in 1910 or built in 1850 or something like that, a lot of these churches were built with the hands of indigenous children. The residential schools where they took the kids, they put those kids inside of residential schools and forced the religion onto them. And they made those kids go into the church and build those pews and build those altars and gild the inside of the church with their hands. These children were doing this work with their hands. There weren't electric tools. So, the church continues to benefit from the work extracted from indigenous children. Any given Sunday, while you're sitting in church, that church, depending on when it was built, could have been built by the hands of my ancestors, forced labor after they were stolen from their parents. So when you go and sit in church when it's Sunday and you get to enjoy the privileges associated with Sunday, that comes at the expense of people like me, because I didn't get my spirituality. I didn't get my religious freedom. My ancestor, the first institutions for mental health in the United States, the very first insane asylums, were built to house Native American people, specifically spiritual leaders. Because the spiritual leaders had access to the ancestors that colonizers can't understand. And the only thing that they could do is think that that person must be actually insane. Because they tried to speak to the ancestors, because they could speak to the ancestors. So, just Sundays are different. They're different for people like me. It's not anything that I can just easily tie a ribbon around and help you to understand just by explaining it, because the feelings are so deep, right? Like, you might have a great grandfather in your ancestry, and you can look at the pictures of them, being happy and enjoying their lives. Well, the pictures of my great grandfather that I have is from religious school. It's from him being taken and having the church torture him. That's the only picture. So, you know, my, my relationship with Sunday is just, it's hard. It's hard. And I don't, I don't understand how people continue to go to these churches. How do my relatives, they killed our relatives, they starved us and stole our lands, and they continue to benefit from forced labor off of my relatives. I just couldn't go in there. There's no way I would be able to go into that kind of a place. I cannot do that. It doesn't make sense to me. You know, because and it's both sides of my family, right? It's my Jewish relatives and my indigenous relatives. Both sides of my family have been directly harmed by Christo-fascism. So while we go into this time of Christo-fascism in the U.S., it's important to remember where we came from, how we got to this place. Because as an indigenous man, I could not go into a church. There's no way. It just doesn't make sense for me.